Praying God's richest blessings upon you as you continue forging forward in this unique season in our history. May God bless you. May God bless you. I have a word today for parents. I want to talk to you parents about talking to Christ about your kids and talking to your kids about Christ. There is a prophecy in the final book of the Old Testament, the final verse of the final chapter in the book of Malachi. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. And this is a part of the last days, that God will reunite families. I'm wondering, is that what he is doing? Initially, this chaos of all families being kind of stuck under the same roof when they're so used to being distributed all over the city. It was a burden at first, probably a burden still, but could it be a blessing, even an indication that God is at work uniting our families? I've got just a couple of thoughts to share with you parents. Now, if this does not appeal to you, if it does not seem relevant to you, that's okay. God bless you. Be about your day. Consider yourself prayed for. Feel free to add your prayer requests to the page, and we're doing our very best to pray for them all. But if you would like just a word of encouragement about maintaining sanity and spirituality in a family, I think I've got a word for you. And it has to do with talking to Christ about your kids and talking to your kids about Christ. I'm thinking this will take about 8 minutes. If you got it, let's give it a go. My Bible is open to the Gospel of Luke, the Gospel of Luke. And it has to do with a father by the name of Jairus. On the other side of the lake, crowds received Jesus with open arms because they had been waiting for him. And now a man named Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, came and fell down at Jesus' feet, begging him to come home with him. His only child was dying, a little girl, 12 years old. Parenting comes with a truckload of anxieties. Will we have enough? Will we share enough? Do we have what it takes? I can remember when we brought our firstborn home, Deanlin, God bless her, had experienced a very painful C-section. And I said, well, let's put our newborn Jenna in a bassinet and put her on the floor on my side of the bed. You sleep, and I'll keep an eye on the baby. Well, Deanlin did sleep, Jenna did sleep, but I did not sleep. Boy, I had no idea that babies gurgled and cooed all the way through the night, and every time they did, I thought something was wrong. I can remember climbing out of bed, putting my ear down over Jenna's tiny face, wondering if she was still breathing. At one point, I climbed out of bed, and I carried her in my arms into the living room, and I just sat there in the rocker, and I prayed. I said, Lord, I'm in charge of a human being. Now, we dads usually realize that after the moms. Moms have the advantage of 9 months of pregnancy, right? And we dads, it kind of dawns on us there in the delivery room as that baby is placed in our arms. But whatever the point at which we realize it, at some points we realize, we parents do, that we're in charge of human beings. And it's even more difficult when the world is in chaos. And maybe what is happening in your world is an opportunity for God to draw you to your children and your children to you. This story about Jairus is very helpful because Jairus is one of 3 parents in the Bible who bring their children to Christ or who bring Christ to their children. He came, one of the Gospels says, he came and he fell down before him, pleading with him to heal his little daughter. That's in the Gospel of Mark. Now, Jairus isn't the only parent to run into the presence of Christ on behalf of a child. There were 2 other parents. One is a mother who stormed out of the Canaanite hills crying, "Mercy, Master, Son of David, my daughter is tormented by an evil spirit." That's in Matthew 15 and verse 21. And then there's a story of a father whose son was tormented by seizures. And he asked the disciples to help. They could not, but Jesus could. He cried out with tears. He said, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." So there's the story of Jairus, there's the story of the Canaanite mother, and there's the story of the father of the son with epileptic seizures. In each case, they came to Christ. They formed this unwitting New Testament society, concerned parents who approach Christ. And here's what matters. In each case, Jesus responded. In each case, he responded deliberately, decisively, and compassionately. Note to all frightened parents, Jesus never turned one away. Never. In that story of Jairus that we began with, Jesus made the Father's prayer his top priority. Now, there was a gaggle of people there in Capernaum. A lot of people needed Jesus' attention. But Jesus gave his attention to that Father, and he went home with that Father. Jesus was moved by the heart of a hurting parent. And friend, he'll be moved by your heart. Remember, our kids are a gift from God. There's this beautiful passage in Psalm 107 in verse 3. Don't you know that children are God's best gift, the fruit of his generous legacy? You see, when you look at your kids, you're looking at your most generous endowment. They upstage any other divine grace. Before they were yours, they were his. In fact, all people are his. We tend to forget this fact. We talk about our kids as if they are our kids, as though we have the final say in their health and in their welfare. But we don't. All people are God's people, including those little people who sit around your table. And wise are the parents who regularly give their children back to God. Take your kids to Christ. Talk to Christ about them. That's what Jairus did. He begged Jesus to come home. Luke 8:41. He begged Jesus to come home. He wasn't content with a long-distance healing. He could have said, Lord, just do something from here and it'll reach my house. He wanted Jesus in his house. He wanted Jesus walking under his roof. He wanted Jesus standing at the bedside of his daughter. Oh, dear mother, dear father, issue this invitation to Jesus. Say, come into our house. Come into this chaos. Come into this confusion. Come in. We need you. Come in and stand by our children. Listen to this prayer that's found in the book of Lamentations, chapter 2 and verse 19. Pour out your heart like water before the face of the Lord. Lift your hands toward him for the life of your young children. Now, folks, there's a lot of things that we as parents cannot do. We can't fix everything. We can't solve everything. We certainly can't answer every question, but we can do this. We can be prayer warriors on behalf of our kids. We can be stubborn intercessors. We can be loyal advocates. We can continue to storm the gates of heaven on behalf of our children. We can do that in good times, but boy, we especially need to be doing that in challenging times. We can take our parenting fears to Christ, because if we don't, we might take our fears out on our kids. Prayer is the saucer into which parenting fears are poured to cool. We can go talk to our Heavenly Father about the difficulty of being a parent. He understands. He's a father, and he will hear us. It's interesting how little Jesus said about parenting. I wish he had said something about, sibling rivalry or discipline or some of the other things that we discuss. But he doesn't say anything. But the point he does make is every time somebody comes to talk to him about their kids, he drops everything to listen. So we can talk to Christ about our kids. And then just one final brief point, but it's important. We can talk to our kids about Christ. We're going to get through all this. And someday your kids are going to tell their kids about how you responded in this time. May your kids tell their kids something like this. Well, it was hard. I remember that it was scary. I remember that our world got changed. I remember that our rhythm was different. I remember that schools were closed. I remember we couldn't do what we used to do. But I also remember that my parents would talk to me with faith. And when I was afraid, they would pray with me. And when I was confused, they would encourage me to pray. And I can even remember those times in which Mama and Daddy would circle us up and would all get on our knees there in the apartment floor. And there we would pray. My parents talked to me about Christ. So, talk to Christ about your kids. Talk to your kids about Christ. And my prayers are with you. And my prayers are with you especially if you have a particularly difficult situation, whatever it may be. Maybe a special needs child. Maybe you're a grandparent called into a parenting role. Maybe you're a single mom or single dad. I'm sorry. But God will help us, and God will help you. If you would like us to pray for your kids, and you don't mind putting their names up, put them up there. And we're trying to do our very best to pray for all these requests by name. If you'd rather us not know the names of your kids for whatever reason, for privacy's sake or something, just say, me and my kids in, I don't know, Florida. God knows, and we'll pray. Hey, God bless you. God bless you. Don't forget the online Bible study, Anxious for Nothing, available for no charge. And don't forget to pray for one another. And I'll be talking to you soon.